My name is Jane Wong, and I'm a poet and artist currently working in Bellingham and Seattle. The artwork in the show Nourish is really inspired by my upbringing in a restaurant and also my family's history during the Great Leap Forward. And it's really thinking through a lot of questions about nourishment and ghosts and ancestors and haunting and just the ways in which we honor our histories through a shared table, which is right behind me. The piece, after preparing the altar, the ghosts feast feverishly, which is a mouthful to say, which is on purpose, is really full of bowls. It's hard to kind of not look back at them right now because I can feel them emanating with golden power behind me. But it's really inspired by a long poem that I wrote in the voice of my ancestors who, again, did not survive the Great Leap Forward, but they are really speaking directly to me as a little girl and trying to tell me a bit about what they want to eat. And so it is a massive feast of epic proportions in which they eat chicken feet and pizza and really ask, a bit about, my life now. And so currently the piece is in bowls, and so the viewers can come in and kind of walk around the table and have that kind of never-ending feeling of having a never-ending meal. And so I hope that everyone finds it fulfilling in this way. So for me, to translate it from the page to poetic sculpture is really powerful. The process behind this particular piece is really thinking through all the ways in which I hoped that my ancestors would respond to me in the poems that I wrote to them, specifically asking about their lives and what they wanted to eat and what they dreamt of. And so I wrote this poem really inspired by their answer to me. So it is a persona poem. It's in their voice, their collective voice. And, when I wrote this poem, I had been thinking about it, dreaming about this poem for 2 years, and it didn't come to me. And so it's strange that I was just at a coffee shop and suddenly I was like moved to write this poem, and I wrote it in 2 hours. So it's a long poem. To write a poem in 2 hours it was almost like a deluge. And so that's really where the process began, is the writing of the poem itself. And the poem, it is a longer poem. It's pretty dense, and so it feels really heavy of sorts. And so translating it, rethinking it, reimagining it through a sculptural piece gives it a lot more breadth and a lot more interactive engagement. And so it feels like a completely different piece. And also, it doesn't end. And so the very fact that we begin, you don't know where to begin in reading the poem when you enter the space. And the gold, too, it's just such a rich color that I really wanted to give this poem a lot of lusciousness and almost gluttony to it, because it is really speaking about hunger as well as being gluttonous, as I grew up in a restaurant. So that's a little bit more about this piece and the process of coming up with this piece. Of course, it was also in collaboration with amazing curators, both at the Fry Art Museum and here at the Richmond Art Gallery, to kind of envision what this may kind of look like and feel like for people coming through the gallery space. But it really was a process of honestly opening up the page, opening up the written word into something that was viscerally felt. What I really love about kind of moving into different mediums, from poetry to sculptural poetry to video installation to other mixed media arts, has been really breaking open the idea of what form and shape can do. So on the page, I do care a lot about how a poem breathes and how it moves and how it feels in terms of its density or spacing or line breaks or using the space of the page, or even thinking about a poem that moves across 10 pages. But having the opportunity to do video installation work, to have sculptural poems, moves off the page in such a way that I feel almost like a kid again. Like I feel like I can dream extra big, and that it feels much more visceral and felt, and now it can engage sound and it can engage texture and smell, so that I'm able to kind of like lift it off the page and retransform it and give it another life. I think what I really love about poetry and like arts in general is that I don't ever have to really finish something. It doesn't have to be the end of its, I guess, artistic life. Is that from a poem to what's behind me, like I can keep playing around, I can keep changing it so it feels like it's alive. And I think for me, art is the most magical when it feels alive, especially since I'm talking in many ways about grief, about loss, about death. And so the fact that I get to move into this new space of kind of interdisciplinary arts is to me a true joy, and I feel my brain is always buzzing with new ideas. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to continue to do this. And this is the direction my work is heading these days. I can't stop now to think about, what else could I do? What else, if these literal words could float off the page, what would it look like? I always incorporate my personal life, my family, my memories, especially my mother. I think in all of the artwork that I do, I can't escape it. In many ways, I almost feel kind of like I have to honor a lot of their stories, because the stories of my family tend to be stories that don't necessarily get a voice in the larger community. And as someone who is an artist, as someone who's a poet, I feel like I have the privilege to respect and to honor and share their stories. I've always been inspired by how I grew up in a takeout restaurant in a strip mall on the Jersey Shore. And that in particular, the fact that I grew up around, the sounds of the wok firing, the oil hitting the wok, the smells of just like sweet and sour, like chicken kind of brewing, like everything around me was so tied to memory. And memory oftentimes isn't necessarily about my direct memory, but it's like the post memory, or the memory that was of my ancestors before. And so I fold that into a lot of my work and my practice, is to think about how am I sharing memories with my great-great-great-grandparents, for instance. And so that really inspires me. I have a big part of my heart tied to this work. When visitors come to see the work and to see the exhibit, I really hope that they think about their own lives and their own personal stories and histories, especially what nourishes them. I think that's the biggest thing I would love for people to kind of feel through, is to think about their own food histories and their memories, and the recipes too that are so tied to a particular place and time. And that to me is like the most important thing, is for people to really reflect on that. And I know that the show also is welcoming community recipes. I hope people add to that too. And also just to really think about all the restaurant babies, or all the kind of kids growing up in family businesses. I think it's such a privilege to grow up that way, and to kind of honor the work, the labor that our families have done and are still doing. And so I hope that really visitors come in and again reflect on their own memories and histories of nourishment, but also really think about labor and class and what it means to be an immigrant, or the children of immigrants too. So I hope it's impactful, I hope it's personal, and I hope it's also full of an awareness that I'm trying my best to be as, I guess, to honor my ancestors as much as I can.